Hey kids. It's me again, Vanilla Ice Cream. Mr. Hunt has been really busy writing some totally awesome rap songs, so he asked me to come back and help you learn some more about history. What I want to do first is draw a line across your notes. You just finished learning about Christianity, but today we are going to be learning about the Dark Ages. This is also called the Middle Ages. After you draw a line across your notes, why don't you write the Middle Ages, 476 to 1400 AD? When Mr. Hunt finished talking about the fall of Rome, I know that he told you that Rome was split into two parts. The Middle Ages is going to focus on the western part of the empire, where Rome was. Now I want you to write down this question: what would life be like if today our government ended? Think about things like the roads, your schools, our police department, and other things that the government is in charge of. Your teacher can pause the video to give you time to write and then answer the question. Now I am going to show you a fantastic video that Mr. Hunt bought for you. It will show what happened after Rome's government fell in 476 AD. A couple of things happened that you probably didn't even think of before. When the Roman government ceased existing, there was no one to keep the sewers and aqueducts working. It didn't happen in one day. For a while, things probably kept going along just fine. But eventually, no one needed repairs. This meant that pretty soon, the sewers just backed up. There was no way for the people living in the cities to get rid of their sewage. Even worse, when the aqueducts started to break down, they could no longer bring enough water in the cities for the people. I know that Mr. Hunt talked about how the barbarians destroyed the aqueducts bringing water into Rome. But I want you to remember that all Roman cities had aqueducts bringing water to them. And also remember that these cities were not just in Italy. They were all over Europe. Lots of people were affected by these problems. The last thing you heard was that houses became less and less impressive. Before Rome fell, trade brought most of the things that people would need right to them. When trade stops, these things quit coming, too. People would have to work really hard just for the things that they needed to survive. When people spend a lot of time just taking care of their needs, they don't have much time to get the things that they just want. Keep that in mind. The next part of the video will show you some more ways that the people's lives were changed and also what happened to all of the great buildings built by the Romans. Okay, now that you have seen the video, I want you to answer these questions. 1. What happened to many Roman buildings? 2. Why did seeing all the remains of Rome's great buildings around them make the people feel even worse about their lives? Your teacher can pause this video now to give you time to answer the questions. The second part of today's lesson will be about what happened next. It will tie in with what Mr. Hunt just taught you about last week. Aren't you amazed at how awesome Mr. Hunt is? Okay, the first part of this video is about Christianity. You will see a little bit of what you read in your books last week. You will see what happened to Constantine to cause him to become a Christian, and then you will see how that caused Christianity to change and grow really quickly. I know that Mr. Hunt will be telling you a ton more details than I will, but I want to give you a few ideas that will help you to understand what was going on. First, most of the people living in Europe still considered themselves to be Romans. If our government suddenly quit, I would bet that most of us would still say that we were Americans. The Romans did the same thing. They just didn't have a government anymore. The people were used to following Roman laws, having Roman courts, traveling on Roman roads, and just being Romans. When their government failed, wealthy landowners took over and started their own armies. They constantly fought against each other for more land. This type of thing went on for years. One of the first barbarian warlords to take over came along at this time. His name was Clovis, and he lived in Gaul, which we call France today. The thing to remember is this: just because he considered himself the king, this doesn't mean that all of the people living in Gaul said he was their king. Remember, many of these people still called themselves Romans. These Romans still followed Christianity, which was Rome's official religion for its last 100 or so years. Well, Clovis was a barbarian following the barbarian religion. During his life, he switched religions several times. He married a Christian princess who tried to convert him to Christianity, but he didn't want any part of it. His story is a little like Constantine's. When he was off losing a battle, he prayed to God. He said that if God would give him a victory, he would become a Christian. Some of you have probably done something like that before, saying that you would always listen to God if he would just help you get out of some kind of trouble. Well, sure enough, he won the battle and then did what he promised God. The wild part of the story is that once he became a Christian, all of those Romans in his kingdom accepted him as their king, and he was able to unite most of Gaul for the first time. Why did they decide to follow him? Because he became a Christian. Let's watch the video so you can see what I am talking about. Okay, I hope that you have learned a lot today. I have a pepperoni pizza calling my name, so I am gonna have to take off. There are a couple of more things that you need to have in your notes. When I take off, your awesome teacher can just pause the video and you will have time to write them down. Thanks for being such a dope audience. I will be back again. Later, homeboys.